Certain algorithms are better than others.
We all know TikTok's the GOAT.
There's no greater drug than TikTok.
Welcome to the Signal Room. I am Gemma Brown. I am the general manager of the Signal Awards. And today on the show, we're going to get into the weeds about podcasts on social media. So many shows thrive in promoting their work, others flounder. How can podcasters stay true to themselves without the algorithm eating them alive? To break it down, we have here in the Signal Room Elosi Icaro, CEO of Jade Media. Hi.
Hi, Gemma.
We have Carmen Vicente, the content and social lead at Slate.
Hey, Gemma.
And we have Akilah Hughes. She's the host of How Is This Better from Courier Newsroom and Rebel Spirit from iHeart.
Hey, thanks for having me.
My first question, and feel free anyone to jump in on this, is when I think about podcasting superpower, I think of it as intimacy that's built through long form trust building, whereas social superpower is intimacy through like quick hits and snackable moments. What is your philosophy on translating podcasts into social?
So I would say that I think that the superpower of podcasters to social media is expertise in deep journalism. I always say anybody can throw on a trench coat and be like, did you drink your bleach today? And I feel what I love about podcasters is that they have so much respect for journalism and research. And I feel like there is a gap of authority and trust that could be filled by them because they're doing so much work to present their final form and in something that's very thoughtful. Social media is a distribution method that allows your podcast to find new audiences and bring people outside of the kind of internal world of podcasting. So I do think that they are complementary, but they do take, I think, different parts of your brain to be able to make sure that they're synthesized.
Objectively, I don't believe that they are the same thing. And so you kind of have to treat them as like church and state. I just think that you're 100% correct about the fact that they're different beasts and the audience is different. And so I sort of try to figure out what is the point of view of my show that can be helpful in short form content. But frankly, I feel like I do have to recreate the wheel every time and it sucks.
When I think about this dichotomy, and we can push back against its existence or not, but if social rewards oversharing, podcasts reward depth. What if you're a podcaster but you don't necessarily want to be a personal brand? Is that possible, advisable in the year 2026?
Advisable? I mean, it's okay. I will just say that I think it is unfortunate, but everybody is going to end up being an influencer. Like, we're all just pushing in that direction. The algorithms dictate what gets seen, what work is rewarded. And so unfortunately, like, even my garbage man has a TikTok account. Like, we all have to promote what we're good at. And so like I do think that like there are ways around the parasocial relationship building, but I'm a little pessimistic on, a successful podcast not having that element in some way. People do want to know who they're listening to.
I always like the phrase, not personal brand, but like I'm working on my personal bland.
I love that.
Carmen, I'd love to bring you into this conversation because in your work, you do this on behalf of brands, right? Like help a brand be its authentic self on camera, on social. What is the tension that you work through in your work?
I work in social, so I'm like online to a certain degree for the company that I work for. I also sometimes do brand partnerships, which is like strange for me because I don't think of myself as like an influencer, but that it is very influencer adjacent.
You're about to be.
Yeah. And like, I think, I'm somebody with a personal brand who thinks it's stupid that people have to have personal brands. It's very common in the social media and marketing world that like there's an implicit pressure for you to build your personal brand. And then people are like, yeah, but I don't want to. Or like, I spend all day on these platforms. I think like I'm the one who should be able to log off at 5 p.m. or whatever. And I don't know, for myself, I feel like I have set up certain boundaries, which is like, I don't talk about what I eat. I don't talk about what I wear,
Okay.
And so I think that's having some of that helps me feel like, okay, I'm showing up online, but I'm not just like dumping everything about myself. And sometimes people have said like, I feel like you could show a little more personality online. Like you're so
Mm.
serious, and I'm like, yeah, but that's also part of the protection is like I don't want to be my whole self online.
How do you do that on a brand level? Like, how do you pick and choose what are the elements to bring forward? We don't want to talk about what the brand ate for breakfast.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say with the brand, it's easier than with your personal account. You don't have to put your personal account content through approval. So
Mm.
it's just up to you to decide like how much of yourself do you want to share. And of course, like you said, if you share a lot, you'll get rewarded in a certain sense. Like the algorithm will like that. But, is that what you want to
Right.
give up?
When I was constructing this conversation in my mind, I was thinking of, Alosi, you can play the sort of role, and I'm going to put each of you in a box right now, of like strategic advisory framework. And Carmen, you think institutionally about brand voice, and Akila, you're in a lot of ways like the lived practitioner. You've been on YouTube since 2006. I looked at
Yeah.
your YouTube account.
Yeah.
Um,
I was like the first account. It was that guy at the zoo and me.
Yeah. And so, when you think about like where public persona ends and private life begins, how have you drawn that line and how's it changed over
Yeah.
time?
I mean, I will say, like, there are probably going to be some people who are younger than me listening to this. And, like, being a young college student when YouTube came around, like, there was no delineation. And, like, also to
Mhm.
that point, like, my YouTube channel was a vlog, was sketch comedy, was interviews, there was no brand. And so I think, like, by watching all of these sort of ebbs and flows and trends through social media and sort of the importance of the algorithm, what I found is like, I don't want to be a person who is stuck at a certain age. Like, I think that that is a trap that happens to a lot of people who lead with social media or lead with their personal life on social media. Their audience doesn't grow with them, they just grow out of them. I consider myself less of an influencer and more of like an artist who happens to do journalism. Like,
Mhm.
that's sort of the cool vibe I like to put out into the world. And so I think that that affords me the space to not have to give everybody the blow by blow of my like routines. But I also think that like it makes the ceiling maybe a little bit lower for me than someone who is like, I'm an influencer and my brand is the podcast and I can be as messy as I want and welcome to my bedroom. Like, and that's fine. Like, I think that that's entertainment for other people. I personally don't excel at that. And I feel a little grown out of it. Like,
Mm.
I'll just give a quick anecdote. Like, we all know about, maybe we don't know all about this, but Iowa Debris was like asked to host SNL. And prior to being like this incredible actress on The Bear and all of these TV shows and movies, she was like a comedian who was posting online a lot. And so she had some like snarky thing to say about Jennifer Lopez, who of course was the musical guest on the episode that she hosted. And so she had to go and kind of kiss the ring about it. And I think that like, it's kind of a good canary in the coal mine situation where it's like, okay, if all of this is flattening, like, I don't need to be my worst self on the internet for clicks and attention if eventually it's going to come back to bite me.
When you say flattening, can you clarify what you mean?
Yeah, well, I'll say like when I started doing social media, and so not podcasts, but it all sort of folded in on itself. There was this like real feeling that like you would graduate from social media and get to
Mm,
be like a
mhm.
legitimate celebrity or a legitimate writer or a legitimate journalist, some next step. Um, and now it's like all of the people who are those legitimate journalists and those legitimate celebrities have to be online. And so it's like the equator is like actually all there is. Like, we're all on this weird playing field. And so I personally just feel like it changes it's no longer a cafeteria where like then I go and I'm different at work. It's like, no, 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 no. Like, it's all work. It's
Mm.
all the same thing. And like you can't really show your ass as much.
But now you get to be an artist who's also a journalist
Right.
and
Didn't
play
exist
with that
before.
hyphen.
Yes. And I get to like never own property, but like be cool to certain groups of people.
There we go. I'm thinking in your work, Alosi, you coach and you work with podcasters to get them to show up in ways where they're more comfortable online. How do you kind of steer or coach someone to bring out their inner influencer, let's call it?
I don't know if I necessarily want to say bring out your inner influencer. To me, it's
Feel
about,
free to correct the record.
well, no, it's because I think if you have something important to talk about, you can be on social media. And it's, to hat tip to what Akila was saying earlier, it is kind of this great equalizer that Coca-Cola has to figure it out. Beyonce has to figure it out. Akila got to figure it
Right.
out. I got to figure it out. You know what I mean? So we're all here trying to figure it out. And I think because I've come from many industries that have collapsed because they refuse to um, take digital innovation and transformation seriously. And I think I've reached a point where I'm like, I'm done watching music die, news die, all of the start paying attention to what's happening on the internet,
Mm,
or someone else is going to come behind you and surpass you using the same three tools that you also have access to.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting to think of social media as the great equalizer, because and also I had never really thought about like, just me and Jacob Elordi out here trying to fight the algorithm. Like
Yes.
I
that is
like that.
exactly what's happening.
But
That's your
it's
comrade.
it's true. I mean, like I don't that's why like, the Washington Post and the New York Times are hiring these roles that are like they'll call it like a storyteller or like it's like a content producer or it's like they're essentially being like, "Hey, how do we coax our journalists into being on video because we know as you said, if we don't do this, like we're toast." And I can only imagine how a journalist would feel who's like sitting at their desk being like, "Are you for real that, I
Mm.
have to go be on a video?" And it's like, I feel for them. And at the same time, like, I don't think of myself as a person who makes videos. The only reason, like I went to school for writing. I really just thought of myself as somebody who like would try to find a job that included writing. And then, you know, social media marketing communications, all of that kind of like touched on that. But the only reason I started to make videos is because that's what the algorithm favors. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll write a script and then that script will be in a video format. And the way that I would get my writing out into the world or out into the the feeds is that I have to make it into a video format. And I feel like that was me basically conceding to the fact that like, okay, this is the format that I have to work in.
Okay, so you're telling us concession
Yeah.
story. But you also like, frankly, thrive doing this. Like I found your work through the videos that you post on LinkedIn and you do them really well. And it doesn't feel like a manufactured relatability. It feels very genuine. It feels very like, I don't know, emphatic nerd in like the loveliest sense. So like you did in some way figure out how to like concede to the rules, but also make it your own. How
Yeah.
did you arrive there? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my thing is that I just try to speak on camera as I would more or less like with a friend or something like that. And I think,
Yeah.
especially in the space that I work in, like B2B, it's easy to fall victim to this, like, oh, now we have to be professional. And like, we don't say these sorts of things. And that doesn't mean that once you get on LinkedIn, you forget what's funny or like you forget what's like bullshit, you know what I mean? So it's not like you don't cross over some kind of like invisible line and then suddenly like lose all of your personality. So I don't know. I don't even think that my videos are necessarily like personality rich. Like as I was saying, like I don't share too much of myself, but I think I just try to talk to people like they're not morons. I try to ask myself like, is this the kind of video that like I would send a friend in a DM?
I love that as a rubric. Like,
Yeah.
would I DM this to a friend or not?
Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by Wistia. If you're creating content and trying to prove what is actually working, this platform is for you. Wistia isn't just a place to shoot and host your podcasts, it also gives you powerful analytics that illustrate how your show is actually doing. We're talking detailed viewer data, who's watching, how long they're staying, which moments they rewatch or skip, even heat maps that show engagement down to the second. So instead of guessing at what your audience wants, you can see exactly what's landing and use that to craft future episodes. Your podcast and videos, they aren't just brand plays, they're measurable growth channels. And the best part, it's all built into the same platform where you host your content, no extra analytics tools required. Less work, more plays. Get started at wistia.com/signalroom. Do you think authenticity on social, on your podcast, is achievable, or is there always an element of performance baked into what you do the moment you switch the mic or the camera on?
Well, I mean, I think there has to be some level of performance. Like, I
Yeah.
do think that, like, there's a world where you could have, my podcast just sound like a voice note to someone. But, like, a lot of
Mhm.
it is a lot of, like, research and trying to
Yeah.
present something that, people hadn't really considered or they've misunderstood in an interesting way. That doesn't make it inauthentic. Like, this is sometimes, the first time I'm telling somebody something is really exciting. The third time I'm setting up a camera and lights and I'm alone in my house, like I'm not that jazzed to do it. And so, like, yeah, I might have to like pretend this is the first time I'm having this thought or sell it. But I also think that like the audience appreciates that. Like they're not trying to just have a conversation with me. Like they are ultimately getting something, learning something, hopefully, from what I'm presenting. And so, like, yeah, I mean, I think that no one has been natural on camera or like truly authentic on camera since like before the iPhone was invented. Like we're all kind of different once we see that we're being recorded.
A Losi question for you. When you work with podcast clients in particular, if someone is starting from zero, starting from scratch, no following, no strategy, what would be the first move that you would tell them to make?
Actually, the very first move I would tell someone to make is to observe what others are doing and to see if they're seeing patterns in what they like and what they're noticing. There is a language to social media, almost like how a article has a format and a newspaper article has a format and a magazine
Mm.
article has a format. They're kind of the same thing for social. And so the reason I tell people to observe first is that when we start telling people what these things are, they're like, oh yeah, I did notice that. I did notice that every video has a really good written, verbal, or visual hook. I did notice that people get straight into the video and they're not like, oh, well, my name is, and then they'll start to know. They'll notice that every good video on their explore page probably has a written hook on it so people know what the video is. So I would tell them to start understanding so they can become a little bit more fluent in the language of social media so that when they have to speak it, it feels a little bit more natural. Marketing inherently to me is an empathetic exercise. And if you can't empathize with who
Mm.
you're talking to on the other side, you are like a stalker, like the rest of these marketers are, instead of actually like having some time to really have a relationship with the person or at least develop a relationship with the person on the other side.
Have any of you ever thought, like, do you ever envision who the algorithm is? Like, because I totally like when I saw the Wicked movies, I was like, and you see the wizard, I was like, that's it. That's the algorithm. That's what it looks like.
It
I mean,
definitely
certain
is like an emperor with no clothes. Like,
yeah, yeah,
Right?
and certain algorithms are better than others.
we all know TikTok's the goat.
There's no greater drug than TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah. They show you what you want to see. Like I feel like Instagram shows you who they think you are.
Yeah.
And TikTok is like,
Mm.
you actually like this.
TikTok
Good
knows you better than yourself.
Mhm.
Carmen, I want your take on the question I asked Alosi, which was basically like, if you're working with a client or from scratch, how do you engage them to build their following? You know, get maybe loosened up on social. What would be some of your practices there?
I launched like an employee advocacy program at the last company I was at, and I mean, it's interesting. A lot of people that I worked with were younger than me. I was the oldest person in our Toronto office, and there was like
I think
80 of
that's
us.
always a good sign. Just so you know.
I mean, but they were like, I think there was a lot of pushback because, say, I'm an elder millennial. Like for me, sort of saying like, yeah, we need to post on social media. It's part of building this personal brand, and it'll help you with your career. Like that makes sense to other elder millennials for the most part. But a lot of them were Gen Z, and they were like, oh, it's like very embarrassing to post on social. Like I think there's a different
Hmm.
attitude
Oh, yeah.
towards social amongst younger generations, and like thank God. I'm glad that they're being a little more critical of these systems. So I don't know. I felt like I definitely had to have these like one-on-one conversations, like a one-to-many approach of like helps to demonstrate to a wider audience like your comprehension of something. And I think that's like also part of my motivation to post more was that I want to have more surface area for, getting my ideas out there or like my comprehension level. So I don't know. I don't know if that's like the perfect approach to it, but that was sort of the approach I took.
One of the things that I often find myself telling to journalists and podcasters most is that for a long time you were reliant on these institutions to be able to kind of underwrite you and support you throughout your
Mhm.
career. These
Mhm.
institutions are crumbling. And honestly, what you've
Yes.
seen on social is a way to at least create some sort of safety that you are.
Yeah.
But it's almost like investing in the stock market. It's like your work is doing work for you when you're sleeping. And so it,
I totally
you know,
agree.
it allows you to put yourself out there and to protect yourself and start to create your own table. Because again, I don't know if relying on the institutions is a good long-term solution for most people who really want to create what
Yeah,
they want to create.
totally. I think of it oftentimes as an insurance policy of
Yes,
sorts, you know?
and
Yes.
yeah.
Akila is someone on with 2 shows on 2 different networks. Response?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I think that like both of those things came about because I had a social media presence. Like I was able to go and pitch these shows with the full confidence of the fact that like I have decades of like my work that is visible, proof that I can do it, the
Mm.
ability to do it on my own without them, which I think is also very attractive to these places where they're like, "Oh, you know how to make a podcast." Like even just that is so you would be surprised how few people have those skill sets to this day, even as popular as podcasts are as a medium. And so I, of course, feel that way. Like I knew going like in college, I was like, I'm the only freak that's on the internet all the time. You guys are gonna be here one day. And of course, like back then people thought I was a dork, but I'm like, now it would be my mother's on social media. Like everyone I know is on social media because it's just kind of a free, easy thing to be entertained, to learn something, to avoid doing something. And so I just feel like more than anything, having your own thing is important. You know, I had a show at Crooked Media. I did their daily news podcast, What a Day, for 400 episodes. And, you know, I loved that job. And when it was time to leave, I had no fear. Like I didn't have anything else
Mm.
lined up, but I was like, I know how to do this. Like, and
Yeah.
so I do think, especially to Elosi's point, it's like if we are in a time where like the institutions are fumbling and trying to figure it out, like CNN is adding podcast mics to the desk to look like they understand what's happening, like, then it's okay for you to go ahead and do your own thing. And like it doesn't have to be huge. Like I follow tons of people who do not have huge followings, but the stuff they make, I know I don't know how to make. And I think it's really original and interesting and people eventually will get it. So like I think it's always worth that sort of personal investment in yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm off that soapbox.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I love that. My brain is spinning of like, how do I shore up that security for myself even as we're talking? I don't have much of a social presence or platform, and I've never really thought about it as an insurance policy in that way, but you spell it out quite vividly.
I think,
Mhm.
everybody starts from zero. And the biggest
Mhm.
content creators we know started with probably their bestie and their mama as their first follower.
Yes.
And so all the difference is that some people keep going and some people stop. Um,
Mhm.
and I love what Carmen said about it being an insurance policy because I always say being seen is safety these days. And if nobody knows
Mhm.
you, then they're not talking about you, unfortunately.
Mhm.
That's the thing is, like, I think everyone's so worried about being cringe, and it's like, yeah, sure, there is some inherent cringe in being online, but there's like I balance that with this security aspect or this insurance aspect that we're talking about, which is that like, I mean, also I feel like I'm kind of like getting older to be on social media, so the cringe doesn't bother me as much, but it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, and I also return to this idea of like, yeah, you kind of have to increase your like your surface area a little bit
Yes.
to
It's
help
so
with.
colonialist Canadian of you.
That's just so real.
Can I be like controversial? And maybe 'cause I'm a
Gladly, please.
marketer that constantly has to push it back against this, but I find cringe to be when I hear someone's like, "That's cringe, I don't wanna be seen." I'm like, I don't know when being cringed out became a marker of coolness. To me, cool bitches do whatever the fuck they want. Oh my god, I shouldn't be cussing
Right.
Yeah.
on this. I'm so sorry. Cool ladies do what they want, and
Mhm.
cool people do what they want, and to me, being cringed out means that you are not only have you shamed yourself, you have placed an audience outside of you to shame you, as opposed to having enough
Mhm.
fidelity to what's inside of you to be like, again, if certain people can be not the brightest and be in the highest offices of the land, why can't
Yeah.
I? If they can make 7 Sharknadoes, why I should be able to say and do what I want? Like cringe. What is cringe in an unhinged society? I'm doing whatever I
Yeah.
want. To me, not and maybe I don't know. I don't really experience cringe, so maybe I'm like, I don't care. I'm gonna do what I want. What are you guys do? You pay my bills. Once somebody comes and they have some Con Ed money, maybe I'll be cringe. Maybe I'll find shame. But until then,
Right.
in this one life that I have, I'm going to put myself out there. And even if I have a series of losses behind me, when I'm on my deathbed, when I look back at my life, I'll look at a life that I built full of adventure and trying, as opposed to serving an invisible audience who doesn't even do anything to me.
Mhm.
But I just feel like people use cringe to put you in like a prison. And I'm like, no,
And, like, to that end, it's like, it's a really big internet. Like, the if 5 people dislike what I'm making, I promise you the majority of people haven't seen it. So, like, who
Yeah.
cares? Like, every
No.
again,
time there's a new controversy, I'm like, "Who are we talking about?" So, you really should just be making stuff. The people who like it will follow it, and the people who don't eventually will move on.
I do think that people who have two marbles rolling around in their brain have something to teach people whose head is full of ideas in terms of just putting yourself out there. Audacity is so morally neutral.
Yeah.
I'm writing that down. Audacity is morally neutral.
Thank you so much for helping me create just the most like cringe forward, audacious version of this podcast possible. Alosi, Akila, Carmen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The Signal Room is created by the Signal Awards, and our team includes myself, Alex Kappelman, Emma Larson, Nick Snee, Amy Chen, Annika Bjardendotter, and Mural Satar. I'm Gemma Brown. The Signal Room will be back next week. Until then, take care.